Romans 8:18 to 25. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. For the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. And not only the creation, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for adoption as sons, the redemption of our bodies. For in this hope we were saved. Now hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience.
I read something fascinating recently. The human eye is so sensitive that under the right conditions, it can detect a single photon of light. One photon. That's the smallest measurable particle of light. Scientists have tested this. If the room is completely dark and your eyes are completely adjusted, the human eye can actually register the impact of just one photon hitting the retina. I read some nerdy things sometimes. That's how desperate we are for light. We're built to notice even the faintest flicker in the dark. But here's the thing, as incredible as it is that we can detect one photon, it's nothing compared to the sun. The sun hits your eyes with about 1 octillion, yes, that's a number, photons per second. Let's see what kind of number that is. That's 1 followed by 27 zeros. You step outside on a bright day and you don't just see light, you feel it. It warms you, it blinds you, it transforms everything. Now, why does that matter? Because in Romans 8:18, Paul says this, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us." He's saying whatever we're experiencing now, no matter how painful, confusing, or dark, it's like that one photon. It's real and it matters, but it's not worth comparing to the blazing brilliance of the glory that's coming. Not worth comparing, really, Paul? What about that diagnosis we never wanted to hear? What about that relationship that's falling apart despite our best efforts? What about the questions that keep us up at night? How can he say these things aren't worth comparing? Unless he's glimpsed something that we haven't. Unless he's seen something so magnificent, so overwhelming in its brilliance, that even our deepest pain appears like a single photon next to the noonday sun. This morning we're diving into Romans 8:18 to 25, and we're going to explore this stunning claim that Paul makes. What is this glory that so outshines our suffering? And why does creation itself seem to be groaning for it? And how can this perspective transform the way we navigate our own pain? Romans 8 invites us to live in the space between that one photon and the sun, between the flicker of now and the blaze of glory that is to come. And my prayer is that by the end of our time together in the Word, that whatever darkness and suffering you might be facing, that it will be illuminated by a hope that won't disappoint. So before we dive into our passage today, let's get our bearings here in Romans 8. Paul has already established that we have been set free from the law of sin and death. We saw that in verses 1 to 8. And that we are indwelt by the life-giving Spirit, the Holy Spirit in verses 9 to 11. And that we have been adopted as children, God's children, in whom we cry, Abba, Father, in verses 12 to 17. And now in today's passage, Paul turns our attention to what this identity means for our future. Paul begins our passage with a staggering claim. Let me read it again. For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. Paul's words here are not some casual observation. In the original language, I consider points to a settled conclusion after careful calculation. Paul has weighed the evidence, he's examined both sides of the equation, and his verdict is clear. There is no comparison. Our present sufferings, as real and as intense as they are, can't be measured on the same scale as the glory that awaits us. And who better to make this calculation than Paul? This man is a man who has been beaten with rods, stoned, left for dead, shipwrecked 3 times, flogged 5 times, bitten by a snake, imprisoned repeatedly. And in 2 Corinthians 11, he gives us this catalogue of suffering that would crush most of us all as we get through the first 2 of his lines. Yet he can still say with conviction, not worth comparing. Why? Because Paul understands the gospel logic. The same Jesus who suffered the ultimate agony on the cross now sits in resurrected glory at the right hand of the Father. This path of suffering to glory wasn't something Paul theorized about. It's the very story of Jesus himself. And if we're united with Christ, his story becomes our story. Now watch what Paul does next. He doesn't immediately focus on our personal hope. Instead, he zooms out to show us that our redemption is part of a much larger story. It says in verses 19 to 20 of Romans 8, for the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope. Creation itself is waiting. And not just passively. The phrase eager longing paints a vivid picture of creation standing on tiptoe, neck stretched out, eyes straining forward, waiting with eager longing. Why? Because when humanity fell, all creation fell with it. Let's go back to Genesis 3 for a moment. After Adam and Eve sinned, God didn't just pronounce judgment on them for rebelling against Him. He also said to Adam in Genesis 3:17, "Cursed is the ground because of you." The very earth was affected by human rebellion. The harmony of Eden was fractured. The world we see today, with its natural disasters, diseases, and decay, isn't the world as God designed it to be. Creation was subjected to futility, to a sense of broken purpose and inevitable corruption. But notice the crucial phrase here. In hope. Even as God pronounced judgment in Genesis, He offered a glimpse of redemption. The promise that the seed of the woman would crush the serpent's head. We see that 2 verses early in Genesis 3:15. The fall was never meant to be the final word. When Paul says creation was subjected in hope, he's telling us that God's plan wasn't just to save individual souls, but to restore everything, all that was broken, which includes creation itself. When will this happen? Paul continues in verse 21 that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. Creation's liberation is tied directly to our glorification. When Christ returns and we are fully revealed as God's glorified children, creation itself will be set free. This isn't about escaping the physical world. It's about the physical world being renewed. The God who said it is good over His creation in Genesis 1 has not abandoned that creation in its brokenness. In Revelation 21, John sees a new heaven and a new earth, and Isaiah prophesies a world where the wolf shall dwell with the lamb. This isn't just poetic imagery. It's the promise of a world restored to its original purpose, freed from the effects of the fall. In verse 22 it says, "For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now." That image of childbirth changes everything. Anyone who's witnessed childbirth knows the pain, the groans are not groans because of decline. They are sounds of new life coming. The pain is excruciating, not that I would know personally, but it's purposeful. It's heading somewhere magnificent. When we see bushfires rage, when we see cyclones devastate coastlines, when we see disease sweep through populations, creation isn't dying, it's in labor. The current suffering isn't meaningless chaos. It's the difficult process of bringing forth something new. Every contraction brings us closer to delivery, and every pain points to the new life that's coming. But it's not just creation that groans, you see. In verse 23 it says, and not only the creation, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for adoption as sons, the redemptions of our bodies. We have the Spirit as a foretaste, a down payment, a guarantee of what's coming. The language of first fruits would have immediately resonated with Paul's readers here. In the Jewish tradition, the first fruits were the initial portion of the harvest offered to God, a promise that the full harvest was coming. The Spirit in us now is the guarantee that complete transformation is on its way. But paradoxically, having the first fruits doesn't eliminate our groaning. It actually intensifies it. The Spirit gives us glimpses of glory that make us ache for its fullness. We experience moments of joy and peace and victory now, but they only heighten our awareness of how much more is coming. And notice what we're waiting for: the redemption of our bodies. This is crucial. Christianity isn't about escaping our bodies for some disembodied spiritual experience. It's about our bodies being redeemed, restored, and resurrected. What does this full redemption look like? It means our bodies that will be no longer subject to disease, to decay, and even death. It means physical existence without the limitations of our current fallen state. It means embodied life that fully reflects the glory of God, just as Jesus rose with a transformed physical body, able to eat fish, be touched, yet free from normal constraints, so will we. The same Jesus who left an empty tomb promises that we will too. For in this hope we are saved. It continues in verse 24. Now, hope that is seen is not hope, for who hopes for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. Christian hope isn't wishful thinking. It's a confident expectation in what's unseen but guaranteed. The word for patience here isn't passive resignation, but active, persevering endurance. We wait not because we're uncertain, but because we're absolutely certain of what's coming. Let's consider what this passage means for us today. How do we live in this tension between suffering and glory, between what is and what will be? Number one, this world is not how it should be. Paul doesn't invite us to put on rose-colored glasses and pretend that everything's fine. On the contrary, he acknowledges a fundamental truth that resonates with our deepest intuitions. This world is broken. It's not how it is meant to be. When you witness disease ravaging bodies, when you see injustice crushing the vulnerable, when natural disasters wipe out entire communities, when relationships fracture despite our best efforts, and when mental health struggles persist despite medication and prayer, when violence erupts in places meant to be safe, when grief overwhelms, like a tidal wave. Something in you knows this isn't right. This is not how things should be. That feeling, that deep-seated recognition that the world is out of joint isn't a lack of faith. It's actually an expression of faith. If your spirit it's your spirit recognizing that we were made for Eden, but we live in exile. It's the image of God within you longing for restoration. Paul says that creation is groaning, and so should we. When Paul talks about groaning, he's not talking about whining or complaining. He's describing the deep, wordless ache we feel when we see that things aren't the way they should be. It's that gut level sigh that rises up when you witness suffering. It's the heaviness in your chest at a funeral. It's that instinctive no, this isn't right that wells up inside you. We should feel this groaning. We should grieve the brokenness around us. We should feel the weight of what's been lost. We should long with creation itself for the world to be made new. It's not giving up on the world. It's refusing to accept its fallen state as normal or as final. Our groaning is the sound of hope that knows there must be more than this. And the second point is, it's not always going to be this way. Here's where Christian hope stands apart from mere optimism or wishful thinking. We don't just believe things might get better. We have God's promise that everything will be made new. The creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption, and we ourselves wait eagerly for the redemption of our bodies. This isn't just spiritual escapism, it's physical, tangible resurrection and renewal. The creation that once reflected God's glory perfectly will do so again. The most beautiful moment of creation, the most amazing waterfall, the most amazing sunset is just a glimpse of what it was actually meant to be. Imagine what it will look like in glory. Think about what this means. Cancer will not exist forever. That's relevant today. Depression will not exist forever. That's good news. Natural disasters will not exist forever. And death itself will not exist forever. And it's going to be incredible. Isaiah paints this vivid picture, which I referenced before. Let me read it in full. It says, this is from Isaiah 11:6. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the lion and the fatted calf together, and a little child shall lead them. In Revelation 21, John tells us that he will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. If you're in the funeral home and directing business, I'm afraid you'll be out of work. Got to find a new career. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things They're not even current things. They're former things, things that once were have passed away. This hope reshapes how we suffer. When a woman is in labor, she endures the most excruciating pain differently than someone just with a broken arm, because she knows that it leads to new life. We can endure present suffering differently because we know it's not the end of the story. Ask any mother about the moment where she first held her newborn child for the first time. In that instant, the hours of labor pain don't disappear from memory, but they are transformed. They become a part of a bigger story, a story with purpose, a story with joy at the end. The pain is reframed by the new life it produced. It's not always going to be like this. And number 3, our hope is guaranteed. In a world full of broken promises and dashed expectations, how can we be sure this glory will actually come? Paul gives us the answer. We ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit. The Spirit in us is the down payment, the guarantee of what's coming. In the context of this passage, the first fruits were brought in as evidence that the full harvest was on its way. They were both a foretaste and a promise. This guarantee begins with our salvation. The fact that we have already been justified, already been adopted as God's children, already been given the Spirit, all of this is proof that God will complete what He started. The indwelling Spirit isn't just there to help us only. He's there because Jesus has already secured our redemption on the cross. He's there, as we'll see in the next part of Romans 8, groaning inwardly within us for the full glorification of what Jesus did on the cross and through His resurrection. Our hope isn't wishful thinking. It's anchored in the finished work of Jesus. The same God who raised Christ from the dead will raise us too. The resurrection isn't just a historical fact. It's a pattern for our future. Because of this, we wait differently than the world waits. The world waits with anxiety, uncertainty, and resignation. We wait with patience, not passive acceptance, but active, persevering faith. We wait like farmers who've planted the seed and know that the harvest is coming. We wait with certainty, not because we're naive about suffering, but because we're confident in God's promises. And we wait because knowing that Jesus isn't just coming someday, He's reigning right now at the right hand of the Father, already victorious, already sovereign. So how do we practically live this out? Number 1, we embrace both the groaning and the glory. Some Christians only emphasize the glory, always positive, always victorious, denying the reality of pain. Even going to the extent that their pain does not exist, because if it did exist, I don't have enough faith, and if I don't have enough faith, then I will continue in my suffering. Others only emphasize the groaning, always lamenting. Their favorite book is Lamentations. Always focusing on what's broken, missing the hope that makes us distinct. Paul calls us to embrace both. To groan honestly about what's broken, but to do so with hope. To hope confidently in what's coming, but to do so with realism about present suffering. When you're in pain, don't rush to spiritual cliches or forced positivity. Let yourself groan. Jesus wept at Lazarus' tomb, even knowing he was about to raise him from the dead. But don't groan as those without hope. Let your lament be shaped by the certainty that this is not the end of the story. What can we do in the meantime? We can pray, pouring out our honest groaning to the God who hears. If you want a pattern for that, read Psalms, read Lamentations, Ecclesiastes. We can gather in community, sharing one another's burdens when the weight feels too heavy to bear alone. And we love with the love of Jesus, a love that doesn't minimize suffering, but enters into it with compassion and presence. We should also live as kingdom ambassadors. If God's plan is to renew all of creation, not just to save individual souls, then our mission is broader than we often imagine. We're called to be ambassadors of this coming kingdom, giving the world glimpses now of what will be when it's fully realized. When we fight for justice, we're saying that this is what God's kingdom looks like. When we care for creation, we're saying this world matters to God. When we show compassion to the suffering, we're saying in God's kingdom, no one is forgotten. And when we forgive those who have hurt us, we're saying reconciliation is possible. And when we share the gospel, we're extending an invitation for reconciliation with the Creator Himself, the ultimate restoration that makes all other restoration possible. Our lives become signposts pointing to the glory that's coming. We don't just talk about hope, we embody it, we live it, we preach it. And lastly, we should fix our eyes on Jesus. The pattern of our suffering leading to glory isn't just theoretical. It's not just a theory. It's already been lived out in the person of Jesus. Hebrews tells us, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross, despising its shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Jesus didn't bypass suffering on his way to glory. He went through it. And in doing so, he not only secured our future glory, but also showed us how to live in present suffering. When your own suffering feels unbearable, fix your eyes on Jesus. Not just as an example, but as the guarantee of your own journey from groaning to glory. His resurrection isn't just his victory, it's the first fruits of yours who are in Christ. The same Jesus who told Thomas to touch his scars, proving that even resurrection doesn't erase the marks of suffering, but transforms them, will one day transform your scars too. They won't just be memories of suffering, but trophies of victory. The same Jesus who walked out of the tomb will one day call you out of yours at just the right time, at just the right moment, just the right way. As we close, let me bring us back to where we began. The contrast between a single photon and the blazing sun. Your present suffering is real, it matters, God sees it, He entered into it in the person of Jesus, and He groans with you through His Spirit. But there is a glory coming that will make even the darkest night seem like just one photon compared to the blazing brilliance of an eternal day. Just one day. And in that light, we'll finally understand why Paul could say with such confidence, the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. Let's pray.